Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. This is Jim. I'm here with Steve.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, a little busy time in sports these days. Um, so let's start off first and foremost. Our segment sponsored by Coriano Trucking. Obviously, a loyal sponsor of us, and we thank them again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Guy Coriano and Coriano Trucking.
Yep. So let's touch base on Major League Baseball. First of all, my first impression was there was no real blockbuster trades, right? I mean, outside of the Astros, just pretty much sealed up the World Series, don't you think? I mean, they're a hard team to beat.
I think that's blockbuster enough. Obviously, we had talked about the deadline approaching.
Yep.
I think we even discussed last week possibility the Yankees were going to go after a Bumgarner or a solid number 2, 3, 4 pitcher, somebody that was going to take prospects and a king's ransom most likely. However, I got all the confidence in the world in Brian Cashman. I got to say, listening to him post-trade, he talked to everybody except the Red Sox.
Yep.
And I just don't think he was willing to part with the package that was being asked.
And don't you think it's partly because they know Severino's probably got to be close to coming back, and you know all the injuries. So why unload all your top prospects? You may need this guy Frazier to come up with Urshela getting hurt the other day.
I think that's really the only reason is I think the health reports on Severino and Dellin Betances too. Let's not forget that he's been sidelined all year too. I would imagine they're probably on target to come back in September. This way they get a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks.
Well, it's right around the corner. So,
But Severino proved to be an ace last year. They had a rocky finish, but he had a great year. They signed him. They're long-term invested in him.
Be quite fresh for the
And
postseason
he would be
stretch.
quite fresh. But back to your point, though, the Yankees were playing Arizona last week, and Zach Greinke was pitching at Yankee Stadium when he got the call.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, Houston, to your point, man, they're going to be tough to beat.
Oh my God!
That's a big three that they're going to throw at everybody. And plus, they're young, they're talented. They've already won the World Series. They're a formidable out to even get to the World Series. So.
And now it sounds like Altuve's getting healthy, and that guy's a beast. Man. He's starting to put up some numbers.
Well, he had
now.
to be hurt because he was batting probably like 260, something like that. Which for this guy normally is batting 360.
Yeah, that's underperforming, but that's health related, I'm sure.
But the Yankees, listen, they had a good weekend. They rebounded from the atrocious performance up at Fenway and come back and sweep the Red Sox at home.
Yep.
Really putting a kind of a knife in the Red Sox here. Really putting the screws to them.
But that's what this wild card does. Yeah, they're not. The Red Sox aren't going to sniff the division, but they could certainly backdoor it into the wild card.
I am not disputing that whatsoever, but I think it was a monumental psychology thing for the Yankees to rebound the way they did.
And what a difference between a week ago in Fenway. Right, it's the same ballpark, but the Red Sox just tear it to pieces. They come back to the Bronx, and the table's completely turned.
Hey, that's baseball.
I guess.
And we've been hard on our New York Metropolitans on Sports with Mono and Mono.
I guess I've been more hard on them than you, but
I've been hard on them. But also, listen, let's acknowledge them when they're doing well. They've just won 7 in a row. I don't care who they're playing. But, some people will say, oh, they're not really good teams they're playing. I don't care. It's a Major League Baseball team. So,
and we talk about the wild card being wide open in the American League. It's even more wide open in the National League. So
I still think the Mets will, have a nice little run here. May go to 7 to 10, 11 games. Who knows? But I think they'll come back to earth. I really think their season is over. I'd be stunned if they catch anybody in the wild card. Then probably have made up some ground, but I got to think there's still 4 or 5 games at best.
Oh, and their
behind
future
that.
Hall of Fame second baseman got hurt, I guess, during the national anthem, I'm assuming.
Most
last night,
likely,
you know.
right. He's only got about 5 more years left on his contract
Right.
before
Right.
Cooperstown comes calling.
Right.
Steroids aside, Robinson.
But you know, all of the talk going up to the trade deadline, they didn't deal Syndergaard. You know, I don't know. What do you think of that? I thought that was pretty much a done deal. I mean,
We talked about it. We were leaning towards he would probably be moved. I still think he's an injury waiting to happen.
I do
A
too.
long-term injury waiting to happen.
I do too.
I would imagine the GM, Brody, explored the market. Probably didn't get the return that he wanted, and now, you know, he's staying in Flushing by the Bay for the foreseeable future. That's for sure.
Yeah, it
We
seems
thought
like it.
Wheeler would have been dealt. I would have thought Wheeler would have been gone, but they're sticking with him. I don't see them resigning him, but listen, if they want to make a run, it's early August. Now, if these guys stay healthy, you get DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler. That's not a bad trio right there, obviously.
Right, but outside of, you know, I like this guy Conforto. I think he's a big contributor. I mean, and McNeil has shown nothing but, hey, he may be around. And Alonso
Yeah.
seems to have quieted down a little bit. I don't know if he's jacked a couple over the past week and a half. Or
He's
something.
been relatively quiet. I think he now has like 34, 35. He's going to hit 50, I think. I think he'll go on another torrid streak
Wow.
in September.
All right.
I do. I think he's that talented.
No, I've told you, I've grown to like him. So
But anyway, we just wanted to make mention that the Mets, that, you know, we're trying to be objective here. We're not picking on them, and we just call it the way we see it. They're on a 7-game win streak, so congratulations.
yep. And something I think it's worth noting, because this guy, when we joke around who's going to the Hall of Fame, I know Sabathia is going and Justin Verlander is going.
Well, he's definitely going.
Struck out his 200th batter for the 9th time, and there was only 6 other Major League Baseball pitchers to achieve that feat. And this is some pretty good company. I think, obviously, most people would get the first top 2, right? Nolan Ryan, Johnson. It could have been Johnson and Ryan, 1-2.
Right.
Tom Seaver,
Bam.
Bob Gibson.
Bam. Pedro.
I wouldn't have said 9 seasons.
I
of
wouldn't
that,
have
but
said that either. We looked that up, but and he snuck in there with,
he did.
yeah.
And Roger Clemens. So the only one not in the Hall of Fame in that crew is Clemens.
And why is he not in the Hall of Fame?
He may be a little dirty.
He's tainted. That's why. We don't like the tainted guys around here. And again, I went to college in Boston, and I saw Roger Clemens pitching as a rookie in 1983. And let me tell you something. And I saw him in Game 6 of the World Series against the Mets at Shea Stadium, about 10 rows behind the dugout.
Oh.
And when I tell you, one of the most impressive pitchers I've ever seen, ever, live, and then to find out what a dirty guy he is as far as that.
But it's one of those Bonds things. Like
It's exactly Bonds.
He may not. He had the talent
It's
to be that
A-Rod,
dominating.
it's Bonds, it's Clemens. These guys were super talented and would have made the Hall of Fame.
And they had
no
a juice
question
to
on their
sustain
own.
their careers.
That
I
is
think.
correct. So that drives me crazy. So when I, you know, we talked about the Albert Pujols last week, and then you got to throw A-Rod's name in there. So, listen.
Look, he's a media darling now. He's on ESPN, so he's gonna get a free pass. So when he comes up for the Hall of Fame next year, he's getting in despite of all of this stuff.
Boo!
I know, but I'm just telling you.
Boo!
He's an ESPN guy, so it's all his colleagues that are going to look the other way on this one. So
And then I just saw quietly a couple days ago who hit his 36th home run quietly, but not quietly.
Mike
The
Trout.
$400 million man. He's got 36 home runs on August 5th. And if he stays healthy, you can bank another MVP. And
I know.
this guy is just fantastic baseball player.
And I hope he stays healthy and just puts up Gehrig Ruth numbers.
He's
But he's had a tendency to, get injured sliding into a base or whatever. Not at any fault of his own. Not Cano injuries.
He can get hurt, but I just want to acknowledge Mike Trout. What a consistent, just a great baseball.
But I'm glad that you brought up the Verlander thing, because this guy is awesome.
Yeah.
And I love that he came out and mentioned the thing about these juiced up balls, because he doesn't give up home runs, and they're flying out of these stadiums. Guys you've never heard of.
The balls are juiced. There's no question. Even Major League Baseball.
480-foot home runs becoming
even
commonplace.
Major League Baseball. I heard an interview with Manfred recently. Listen, the balls are different. There's no question. It's all about the home run right now. So
and listen, he's been a good player for New York, but for Austin Romine to hit a 440-foot home run,
says
really?
It all. Says it all.
Really?
Yep.
I mean, come on.
Right.
No.
It is high. It is far.
Oh my God! It's over on the Waveland Ave, or what's the one in Boston?
Lansdowne.
Lansdowne, right?
Absolutely.
But anyway, so that's some baseball, and we're getting into the dog days of the season. But you just can't help being impressed with the Yankees. There's injuries after injury after injury, and they just keep winning.
And
this could be a big loss. Urshela, if he's hurt.
Oh, Gleyber Torres went to the hospital last night too.
I know.
He's the one who scares me the most. This kid he is some ball player. I got to tell you, we talked about the prospects last week with the Met trade with Marcus Stroman, and we talked about how subjective prospects can be. I got to tell you, though, that when Gleyber Torres came on the scene and the Yankees were sniffing him from Chicago in the Chapman trade and Theo Epstein, right? The Cubs were all in that year. It was a perfect storm. And you really think he wanted to give up Gleyber Torres? So my point being is he was kind of like an exception to the rule of everybody thought this kid was going to be a stud. And let me tell you, he has not disappointed. In fact, he's exceeded expectations from my perspective.
And if you don't think that was Brian Cashman's, not his crowning move.
So far, it's
right? He lets
lately
trades him to the Cubs, knowing full well, listen, you're gonna win the World Series there, but we want you back because we want you to win a World Series in New York because there's nothing like it.
That's right. So
they send him packing. He comes back the next year, and now Torres, and I thought it was a brilliant move by Cashman. Brilliant.
There's no question about it.
Brilliant.
So, but my point is, I'm concerned. I'm hoping he is just a minor thing, but it gets to the point of the Yankees they're about 40 games over 500 now.
And I think besides, listen, I mean, you can't dismiss LeMahieu. We could win a batting title, but they got him for almost nothing. And he's got to be the MVP of this team.
There's no question.
But this guy Urshela, what a season this kid's had. I mean, and nobody saw this coming.
Nobody did.
From a utility player to a
not even Cashman saw this coming.
Nobody did.
Miguel Andujar didn't see this coming.
Well, he's going to see it going because he's never getting his job back in New York.
Most likely.
I was talking about that with somebody today. He better start packing because he ain't coming back. This guy can field and hit. I mean, unbelievable. Great job. All right, so listen, let's move on to some football.
Absolutely. I'd like to make an announcement follow-up from last week. We had talked about the Whizzinator.
Yes.
Right, with the drug testing and so on and so forth, and I was having trouble remembering the guy's name. Well, for our diehard football fans, there's a lot of people out there never going to hear of this guy. Ontario Smith was a running back for the Minnesota Vikings out of the University of Oregon.
Right.
Not the brightest bulb in the lot, but he was the guy on the Vikings who showed up at a drug test and he got popped with the Whizzinator, with the fake one.
Fake sample.
Fake sample.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make note to our fans that it was Ontario Smith,
okay,
who was the pioneer of the Whizzinator.
Yep.
And here we are with all the Houdini acts in and around drug testing and trying to.
Yeah, it's pretty funny actually. The Whizzinator. I got some good laughs out of that one. And I thought somehow it had to be tied to Mandarich because I thought Mandarich had, you know,
He has connections,
was-
believe me.
was the
If he
pioneer
wanted a
in that.
Wizinator, Mandarich could have gotten a
I
Wizinator.
guess, right. But listen, before we move on with the NFL, this segment sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, and thank you, Michael Lynch. Yeah, so that's pretty funny. I'm glad that you brought that up. So let's touch base on the Hall of Fame, because I think you and I were kind of split on a couple of guys that got in, right? It was induction week. It's hard to believe there was actually a Hall of Fame game. I didn't watch 1 second of it, but
I did watch, I'll say I watched perhaps the first 5 minutes of the first quarter,
okay.
and then I couldn't take it anymore.
But I heard there was some interesting things. There was Gil Brandt was interviewed and
He
so
was.
forth.
That
so,
I did see.
and I fully intended on watching his induction speech. I missed it and I didn't see it. But, you know, one of our fans, Jim Smith from Westchester, called us and said, "You're not going to believe who's introducing Gil Brandt into the Hall of Fame." And as sure as hell, I didn't. My first pick was Staubach or Bob Lilly. Who else could it be?
Those were my first two picks, and then when you said no, I said, huh. Who has the biggest ego in the room?
Oh, my
Who
God.
owns the Dallas Cowboys? And who has been recently inducted to the Hall of Fame?
You know, this has to be this Gil Brandt, Texas, Southern Baptist, whatever, forgiveness first kind of thing, because I would have picked 500 names before I picked Jerry Jones to introduce that man, who's we think, and we've talked about him before, I've met him before,
I've met him.
gracious guy.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Oh my goodness! But to have Jerry Jones, I mean, boy, has he got a heart bigger than Texas? I mean,
They do it bigger in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah, so let's talk briefly on the inductees. The first one I think we kind of disagree on is Champ Bailey.
Listen, I've mentioned this before. I mean, he was a solid player, but dominating Hall of Fame type player, I never thought so.
I thought he was a shutdown corner, great athleticism, could intercept the ball. We had talked about, did he win a Super Bowl? He didn't,
He did not.
right?
That's
I
right.
thought he did, but probably one of the Denver teams. But to me, that doesn't discount him. I think the guy is a Hall of Fame.
Look, there's the other bums, Howie Long and those guys have been in before
Dan
him,
Hampton.
so I don't have Dan Hampton. Yeah, those are the two staples in the
And if
modern
anybody
NFL.
has any comments on Dan Hampton being in the Hall of Fame, deservingly so, please email us at sportswithmono@gmail.com.
Yep.
I know I have a couple Raider fans out there that dispute the Howie Long assessment of Sports with Mono and Mono, but that's what makes sports fun, is to have your opinions.
So if those two are in, Hampton and Long, then I guess I have a problem with Bailey.
Right?
Ed Reed, I don't have a problem with him either.
I only had a problem with a 38-minute induction speech.
Oh my God, it was horrible.
But you cannot discount how great of a football player Ed Reed was.
He was.
He really, I mean, he's a no-brainer.
And it was hard for us to warm to him coming out of the U and
That's
the
right.
whole 9 yards.
Yes it was.
But,
But he proved himself immeasurably.
he sure did. And I don't have a problem with Ty Law, since we're talking about the...
Ty Law leading the Hall of Fame candidates and having 3 mothers for his children. So that was another 5 minutes of induction speech. Ty had to thank his three wives or 3 ex-girlfriends, whatever the case may be.
You know what I was saying when I saw this? I just saw a couple of clips, and he was talking about his mother, and I go, his mother looks younger than him. So that's the mother of his kid, I'm assuming, right?
There's 3 mothers of his children. He's
Wow.
not exactly in Warren Cromartie fame
Of course
or
not.
territory yet, but nonetheless, Ty Law's speech was great.
It was.
Michigan guy. We remember him way back when.
We do.
He spoke glowingly of Bill Belichick. Belichick was in the audience. I thought that was moving.
Yep.
Whether you like Belichick, I'm not a New England guy, but I'm also, come on.
You're an impartial sports fan, and you know how brilliant the
And
guy is.
that's correct. So Ty Law, I thought speech was
It really was. It was
really
great.
hit home.
And Kevin Mawai, Stephen and I don't know if we're split. I'm saying I don't see this as a Hall of Fame guy. I mean, in the category of Webster, I mean that's obviously
Right.
the benchmark for centers.
Again, my criteria, I don't care what sport it is, when you bring up a name, you got 2 seconds basically to say yes or no. Is this guy a Hall of Famer? Yes or no?
Right.
And when I think of Kevin Mawai, I'm going to say no. Does that mean I can't research it and make a case down the road? Absolutely does not mean that. But is he a Hall of Famer? I'm going to say no.
Listen,
Great. Listen, outstanding football player. Not diminishing him at all.
Exactly.
But again, the Dan Hamptons of the world are in the Hall of Fame. The Warren Sapp's first ballot Hall of Famer.
Outrageous.
Please.
But when you talk about centers, and we talked about this before the show, there was a guy, Dermontti Dawson, right?
Sure.
Very solid player. Dwight Stevenson. But he didn't have a long career. He got injured, you know.
University of Alabama.
But are they in Mike Webster's category? No.
Jim Otto.
Sorry.
No. Exactly.
Nope.
Right? So, but the next one we're going to bring up is absolutely a bona fide Hall of Famer, Tony Gonzalez.
You and I never hemmed and hawed 1 second on this.
You have there was nothing to dispute that.
He
Long career, good looking guy, all that stuff. But I tell you, he suited up every Sunday.
He sure did.
Was extremely productive. Great athlete. He played
basketball at Cal.
At Cal, he did. He was just an all-around great athlete.
Yeah.
So
that's a Hall of Famer.
That's a
right
Hall of
there.
Fame.
When you go Gonzalez
Totally. Absolutely.
And
the Bolin family from Denver. Unfortunately, I think Pat just passed finally. He had Alzheimer's or something.
He did about 6 months
listen,
ago.
he's owned the team for a long time, and I got no issue with that.
And all his players always said he was a great owner to have, a great guy to work for.
No doubt.
That goes
says a lot.
That goes far for us.
And then the last candidate was kind of before our time. Was a defensive back, Johnny Robinson, who played for the Dallas Texans and Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
But Johnny Robinson got a ring in Super Bowl IV for the Kansas City Chiefs. So he was the last of the Mohicans here with the Hall of Fame inductions.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to mention that. And then,
but I certainly and one of our listeners mentioned, he goes, I was blown away by noticing how big Gil Brandt's hands were during that interview. And I said, I know, I've shook that hand.
Right.
Catcher's mitt.
No doubt. But during his interview, like you said, during the Hall of Fame games, interesting because of today's sabermetrics and everything like that, from baseball to football.
Oh, these guys were pioneers.
Yeah, but he brought up the story about how he got involved and he met this like rocket scientist type of guy. I think it was like an Indian name or something. And he said this guy couldn't tell you if a football what a football looked like. However, this guy could do mathematical equations like it was nobody's business. So they showed a picture of the era, I think it was late 60s, early 70s, where, the IBM computer would be the size of a 18-wheel, tractor trailer, the size of that. So I found that to be interesting that, Gil Brandt was really, and Tex Schramm were kind of the forerunners of all major sports, like to take that computer science and apply it. And he said, why can't we apply this to the football field? And then, obviously, over 4 or 5 decades now,
and I'm going to say something.
Into this crazy sabermetric stuff.
That they came up with that concept, and they had the perfect head coach to take that information and turn it into
apply it to the field.
A championship team. Tom Landry, right? I mean, who was? And he bought into that, without question about it. No question about it. But that was the perfect time. Gil Brandt and that concept. And I don't know who that kid was that came up with it. I don't know if he even mentioned his name.
He did, but I can't remember to pronounce it.
But to have Tom Landry there take that information and then put it to the field was perfect.
Turned him into America's team.
I guess. I guess. So, anyway, congratulations to the Hall of Fame inductees. I did see something the other day because I think next season is the 100th anniversary of the NFL or something.
Yeah, right.
So they're thinking about expanding the um, number of inductees to try to push it to 20. You know what that's going to do? It's going to make guys that don't belong, the Hamptons and Longs and all these guys. There's going to be 5 or 6 that we're going to be. You got to be kidding me.
Right.
You're that hard pressed to get 20 guys in the NFL. There's 20 guys on the Vikings from the 70s that still haven't
What
made
does
the
that
Hall
mean?
of Fame.
Like Abdul Salam from the Jets will get in before Joe Klecko?
Right. And you know what? I am so glad you brought that up because it's been a passion of mine.
I
You
know.
know it. If there's 20 guys that get in that Hall of Fame and number 73 is not one of them, I'm going to blow a gasket and tune out from the Hall of Fame going forward.
So let's segue to another guy. Unfortunately, our notable passing segment is
Yes.
becoming way too prevalent on the show. But it's part of our show and it's part of our remembrance of great athletes that
Yep.
we were able to watch. So unfortunately, Cliff Branch, number 21 of the Oakland Raiders,
Yep.
passed away only, 2 days ago, I think it was, at
Yep.
age 71.
Yep.
And Cliff Branch is one of those guys that's not in the Hall of Fame that absolutely, I think,
Deserves
should
to
be.
be.
So Cliff Branch played 14 years. He was a 3-time Super Bowl champion.
Yep. 76, 80, and 83.
Right, those seasons,
Yep.
right? Caught 501 balls for over 8,600 yards and 67 touchdowns.
And that's when they didn't throw
Oh, this is when
80 times a game.
Exactly.
And,
This
you
is-
know.
I mean, he was a deep threat receiver.
And don't take this as a slight on Biletnikoff, but if Fred Biletnikoff is in the Hall of Fame, then Cliff Branch belongs in the Hall of Fame right by him. Just
No
like,
slight on Fred
just like
Biletnikoff.
Swan and Stallworth
Right.
and Rice and Taylor. That was the precursor to those guys.
Right, and he led the league in receiving yards in 1974, and he also led the league in receiving touchdowns in 1976.
Yep.
He averaged over 17 yards a catch, which is outstanding.
I think one season he averaged 24.2
He may have. He may
yards
have.
per carry, which is unprecedented
Right.
for this day and age.
So, for the generation of fans that go back to the early
70s.
70s, and I think guys with, who watched all this, you have to say Cliff Branch. And the reason I'm bringing him up after that, what you mentioned about these additional 20 guys that may or may not get in,
Yep.
I got to think Branch would have to be one of them. And I'm upset that he passed and doesn't get his, the
Yep.
acknowledgement.
Yep, I
while
agree.
He was alive.
I agree 100%.
So that's a notable passing. We wanted to mention Cliff Branch to Raider Nation and to all our fans.
And listen, there was also another notable passing. We brought this up on our show
A month ago.
a month ago. It was just a phenomenal special on either HBO or HBO.
It
I
was
think.
HBO.
Nick Bonacani succumbed to his.
Not surprising based on the documentary and
Yes.
Nick's state of mind at the latter part of his life here, but he passed away finally at 79.
Yep.
He had just a remarkable, great career.
Yep.
Notre Dame guy.
Very, nobody even saw this coming. I mean, he was an undersized linebacker out of Notre Dame and started out with the Boston Patriots.
I think in 1962.
Went to the Dolphins. Don Shula's like, can I help you?
Yeah.
Like, I'm your starting linebacker.
MLB too.
So it was just a great story, and I'm going to throw that out there. If you guys can check that thing out, but that's a notable passing as far as that's on the Cliff Branch era. We recognize great
Greatness.
players
Yeah.
from an era that was just unmatched, and very sad to see Nick Bonacani go.
Absolutely.
And, you could tell he was in major distress, and that wasn't him.
No, it wasn't. But,
I mean, he had just as much a prominent career after the NFL as an agent and a sports guy and a TV host and
president of American Tobacco. I mean, he held corporate positions.
Oh, big time.
He ran, the TV show inside the NFL for 23 years.
Commanded just as much presence in the boardroom as he did on the football field.
I think he raised over $100 million towards this
Miami project.
Yeah, for the paralysis project, the Miami project. So I'm glad that we talked about him a month ago.
Yep.
And I hope a lot of our fans have had the opportunity. And if you hadn't, go do a little research on Nick Bonicani. It's
and Cliff Branch.
And Cliff Branch. So those are our unfortunate, notable passings for this week.
And listen. Before we wrap up the NFL, you brought this up and you said the guy's worthy, and my position was these guys have contracts, play your contracts out, and then you get paid. But it was the first thing, and I think we kind of touched on it. Why I think New Orleans was kind of the first to, and I say cave.
I don't think they caved. I don't. I think it's smart what they had to do. They had to pay this kid.
Right, but he was under contract. But I think they realized this is Breeze's last chance, and they're that close.
He's 40 years old.
But they're that close, and if this guy wasn't there, then that would be a big blow to their chances of winning it. So
they were going to have to pay him anyway, and the fact that they knocked it out as quickly as possible, I think, goes to the value of Michael Thomas. The Saints saw it. Like I just said, Breeze is 40. I mean, he may have another year after this, but you have to wrap him up. The guy becomes the highest paid receiver in the NFL. I'm sure it'll be temporary. You guys got guys like Amari Cooper in Dallas just sitting back waiting. There's some other guys just waiting, and a lot of these guys were waiting for that domino to fall. So Michael Thomas, being the youngest of the bunch, domino just fell. So you're going to see even a little bigger contracts from some wide receivers, especially Julio Jones. Julio Jones isn't even practicing. He's that good. I mean, he's practicing, but he's not going to play in preseason games.
Right.
So if Michael Thomas is getting $100 million, what do you think Julio Jones is going to
Right, but here's the difference, and I think you touched on this last time. You said this kid, Thomas, is worth it. He's a franchise guy on a team that can contend. The difference with the Chargers, they're not going to win a Super Bowl with or without Melvin Gordon. The Dallas Cowboys are not going to win a Super Bowl with or with Ezekiel Elliott.
Right.
And the Atlanta Falcons are not even going to make the playoffs with or without Julio Jones. That's the only difference I see, but it doesn't justify the fact that I think they caved, and my position is play your contracts out, and then we'll talk after that.
Boy, Melvin is really applying pressure on the Chargers. Now he's demanding a trade out of L.A. Woo!
And they're not exactly lining up at the door for
As
to hear
of now, right, there's no Mayflower vans packing into the parking lot getting ready to move Melvin and his family.
Right.
So, but these holdouts will continue. Zeke, again, I'll stay firm. He ain't signing until probably week 1.
Week 2.
That Monday.
Yep.
And we'll see how it plays out.
Yep.
So,
and there was one, before we wrap up the NFL, there was one pretty funny thing. I saw Baker Mayfield was at, I think, a baseball game yesterday.
chugging.
Bites the can, chugs the beer, shaved his beard.
One of the guys, Baker, got on his receivers last week. I like Baker Mayfield.
I'm growing to like him. I just hope he doesn't,
Listen, I mean, we saw Johnny Manziel, and thank God, because I was a proponent of drafting Johnny Manziel for my Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
I have to admit that. I bought into the ridiculous thing of Johnny Manziel.
Hey,
and thank God.
Other people brought into Ryan Leaf too, so I don't feel so bad.
But the point is, I think Baker gets caught up in a comparison of Johnny Manziel more from their size and style of play, I think. But I really think Baker Mayfield has his head on straight. Is he going to have fun and be, out of the box? Yeah, that's no problem. But I'm a fan of him. This is a big year for him. I mean, he's got the weapons this year. He's matured. He's got that rookie year under his belt, and I'm looking to see big things from him.
Yep.
I mean, being a top 10 quarterback. I'm not saying I'm looking for Baker Mayfield to be Peyton Manning or anything.
Right.
Not happening. Not yet, anyway.
But it looks like for a young kid, he is taking charge of that team, and that's going to be his team.
And I tell you
Yeah.
what, that goes back to this John Dorsey taking over in Cleveland, and
Yep.
he took the gig the year right, like kind of within the year where they were going to get that number one pick, and what was the discussion? Who's it going to be? He had 5 candidates really to choose from.
I
that
wouldn't
type
pick
of thing.
Mayfield as number one.
Right, you got Darnold and all these other guys, and he locked and loaded on Baker Mayfield months before the draft. Similar to what Gettleman just did with Daniel Jones. Okay, but it gets to the philosophy of if that's your team and you're in charge, and if that's your guy,
And take
well,
him.
then you take him.
I
Good,
agree.
bad, and different.
I agree. I mean, I wouldn't have taken Darnold or Mayfield in the top 3, but that's why we're not GMs.
I wouldn't have
so.
taken Daniel Jones at 6.
I know. I did run.
Boy,
into,
17.
I did run into a guy the other day. He had a Giant shirt on, so I made a crack about it, and I thought he was going to come down on me when I said I liked the pick. He goes, "I like the pick too." So there's at least 2 people or 3 people that I know that like the pick, and it
Our
remains to be
our
seen.
brother Tom likes the pick too, I must
Right.
say, who is a diehard Giant fan.
Right.
So, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, this is some good stuff with the NFL.
Right.
And looking forward to the season getting underway and getting these preseason games out of the way.
Yep.
So our final segment is sponsored by Di Filippi's Bakery of Monticello, New York.
I would like to say something about Di Filippi's Bakery of Monticello, New York. Not only is it the best bakery up in the Catskill area out of Monticello, New York, but the owner, Carmela, recently became a grandmother for the first time.
Oh,
She is now the beaming grandmother of a young child, a masculine child, named Angelo Andreas. So congratulations to
congratulations
the
to our
family.
sponsor.
Her son Felice is the proud father. So we want to just thank Di Filippi's Bakery for sponsoring our show.
Excellent. So listen, let's just wrap up a couple things because I'm the PGA, and we talked about this was unbelievable. I don't remember there ever being a year like this. The 14th first-time PGA Tour winner. And these are some of these guys we've never heard of until they come and win on Sunday afternoon. JT Poston? Never heard of him.
Never heard of him either.
And we watch PGA just as much as anybody else.
Right, but that gets to the point and when we're talking about the Masters. So when we make our Masters picks and U.S. Open picks and major picks, at the end of the day, there's literally 30, 40 guys that can pull this off.
But what this tells me, though, is these young kids today, right? I mean, we have the Koepkas and we have these guys that are the core guys, the Fowlers and the up-and-comers, but some of these kids, you know, they're young kids.
Right, but normally the tournaments that they're playing are not fully loaded with your top 10, top 20 guys. I'm not diminishing the fact he's winning, but let's also point that out that you know you don't have Tiger Woods breathing down your throat and Brooks and Dustin Johnson and
I'll
all that.
concede that point,
Okay.
even though it's a field. Normally, there's 85 guys in a field, and
But still,
there's a dozen of them that have won before.
right. But
so.
then he's beating the Sergio Garcia and he's beating really solid player, Patrick Reeds of the world, that type of thing.
Right,
So,
right. And you look at stuff like that, these first-time winners, but that blew me away. 14 in one season, and it was the Wyndham, it was the wrap-up. So the FedEx Cup starts this week.
right.
Northern Trust
Here in North Jersey, at a Liberty, I believe.
Yeah.
I went there a couple of years ago. It's a nice course to go watch. I highly encourage it for our golf fans. If you haven't attended one of the FedEx events, my Boston guys, they're up in, I think they play in Norton, Mass, or Brookline. That's typically the second leg of the FedEx. Great event. And you get, you got the top 30, 40 golfers, and then they just slowly weed them away with elimination by points and so on and so forth.
I think the number's even higher than that. I think
It could be, yeah.
I mean, I think I heard it and I said that can't be. I mean, you have over 100 guys.
That I don't know about that, but
I thought I heard something.
There's a lot of golfers there, and plus, I mean, the end of the rainbow for this. These guys take it seriously. It's a lot of dough at stake.
It is.
And last I checked, it was 10 million, but could be even a higher person.
And I wanted to acknowledge, because you brought up and you mentioned we weren't 100% certain that Furyk won a FedEx, and he did.
Oh, I was 100% certain.
All right. Well, I wasn't 100% certain, but he did.
I remember when he did. I remember when he pulled that.
But here's one other interesting fact about this kid Poston's win. And I found this almost hard to believe, that it's only the second time since 1974 there was a bogey-free round for the winner of a PGA tournament. And the last guy to do that was Lee Trevino.
Wow, that is a long stretch.
I sit here and I'm going, that's really true? Woods, Nicholson, all these guys never had a bogey-free wire-to-wire win?
Jack Nicklaus? Nobody?
Yeah, I forgot to mention him. But that was, hey, listen, impressive for him. And you know what you're talking about, it's not competition sometimes at the season's end for these guys isn't as great. I guess that puts it into perspective. Maybe we give Danny Willett, he beat a Masters field and won it. I mean, did everyone just have a lousy week, or did he have his career week?
Danny Willett's a Masters champion. You can't take that away from him.
You never could take a green jacket away from somebody.
So you can hide it like a Seinfeld episode.
Right. So listen, this was a good show. We covered a lot of stuff, but we do get to our shout out, and you know, this one's a little tough to even get out because it affected the nation. Right? These mass shootings, it just seems more commonplace than not. But it happened in Dayton, it happened in El Paso, 29 people. I mean, just imagine the families that are affected by this. And this isn't a political statement, it's nothing to do with that. Although I will say, there's no reason on God's green earth that somebody can go to Arizona and buy an AK-47 automatic machine gun. I just don't understand why, you know, not even for
hunting elk.
How many? You know, I mean, but no, listen, no joking around.
There is no joking around. I am in full agreement on, really, do we really need AK-47s?
No.
I get the gun, the right to bear arms. I get all that.
And it's not political. These are demented minds, but the impact and our hearts from New Jersey and Sports with Mono and Mono go out to those families, and we just hope it won't happen again. And unfortunately, I don't think we have the liberty to dictate whether it will.
Right.
Mental illness, sickness in the head is an epidemic, it seems.
So on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, a couple days ago, you know, and then you see this stuff come across the news. It's very sad. To your point, the society we're living in, it's
heartbreaking.
It's a little wacky, obviously. So you got to be on guard. Unfortunately, you can't even go to a Walmart with your family and feel safe anymore. It's a sad state of what's going on, and unfortunately, these become more and more frequent. It seems like this happens every 6 months or twice a year, and
and we're stepping away from our wheelhouse and our forte and our love of sports, but this really hits home. It almost minimizes the sports.
Right. So our thoughts and prayers go out to all the people of El Paso that were affected by this, and we just wanted to make mention of our fellow Americans.
You know, and thank goodness for these first responders and these police. They become so well trained and well versed in combating situations like this.
Yep.
How many lives did it save that, 3-4 years ago, if this happened?
Sure.
Countless people would be dead. So
right.
Our best wishes to them and to the families from Sports with Mono and Mono, and all our best and our prayers are with you.
Yep, I wholeheartedly agree.
So thanks for joining us, everybody. And Steve, it's great to get your opinion, of course, and Thanks again to our sponsors and so forth, and we look forward to our next show next week.
Absolutely. And if anybody has any comment, anybody has a question, anything, please email us.
Yep.
Sports with mono and mono at gmail.com.
And we will bring it up on the following show.
You get that right.
All right.
Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. Enjoy your week.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.